Time phenomena that break your sense of reality right now. You think you're experiencing the present moment. You think now is happening as you hear these words. You think time flows smoothly, consistently, objectively. You're wrong. The now you're experiencing already happened. Your brain is showing you the past and calling it the present. Time doesn't flow. Your consciousness stitches together discrete moments and creates the illusion of continuity. And under the right conditions, your perception of time can break completely. You've experienced this. You just didn't know what was happening. Today we're exploring 4 time phenomena that prove your sense of temporal reality is constructed, fragile, and easily shattered. These aren't theories. These are documented neurological events that happen to everyone. First, chronostasis, the stopped clock illusion, where time freezes the moment you look at a clock. Second, time dilation in extreme situations, why near-death experiences feel like they last forever when they're actually seconds. Third, tachypsychia, the bullet time effect where reality slows down during high-stress moments. And finally, the oddball effect, why novel experiences feel longer in memory than they actually were. By the end of this video, you'll understand that time is not objective. It's not a river flowing at constant speed. It's a construct your brain creates. And that construct can glitch, stretch, compress, or stop entirely. Your sense of time is an illusion. And these phenomena prove it. Let's begin with the one you've definitely experienced but probably never understood. Chapter 1 is the stopped clock illusion, why time freezes when you look at clocks you're walking down a hallway. You glance at a wall clock to check the time. And for a brief moment, maybe half a second, maybe a full second, the second hand appears to freeze. It doesn't move. Time has stopped. Then it ticks. And continues normally. As if nothing happened. You probably dismissed this as a trick of perception. Maybe you looked at exactly the wrong moment. Maybe the clock skipped. But it wasn't the clock. It was your brain. And what you experienced has a name, chronostasis. The stopped clock illusion. And it reveals something disturbing about how you experience time. Your brain is lying to you. Constantly. Filling in gaps. Editing reality. Creating the illusion of continuous experience when the truth is far stranger. Here's what's actually happening. Your eyes don't smoothly track across space like a video camera. They move in rapid jumps called saccades. Several times per second, your eyes jerk from one point of focus to another. During these movements, which can last 20 to 200 milliseconds, your vision is suppressed. You're functionally blind. Your brain doesn't want you to experience this blindness. It would be disorienting to have your vision cut out multiple times per second. So your brain edits it out. Fills in the gaps. Creates the illusion of continuous vision. But filling in gaps requires making assumptions. And sometimes, those assumptions create temporal distortions. When you move your eyes to look at a clock, there's a saccadic blind period. Maybe 50 milliseconds where you're not actually seeing anything. But your brain can't show you nothing. So it does something bizarre. It takes the first thing you see after the saccade, the clock face, and projects it backward in time. It fills the blind period with that image, making it seem like you've been looking at the clock longer than you actually have. This makes the first moment you see the clock feel extended. The second hand appears to freeze because your brain is showing you a static image for longer than it's actually visible. You're experiencing the past as if it's the present. Your brain is lying about when things happened to maintain the illusion of continuous time. This isn't speculation. It's been rigorously tested. In laboratory experiments, researchers have participants look at digital displays that change the moment their eyes move. For example, a display shows a moving pattern. When the participant's eyes saccade to look at it, the pattern immediately stops moving. From an objective perspective, they only ever saw a static pattern. But participants report seeing the pattern move briefly before stopping. Their brain is inventing motion that didn't happen, projecting it backward into the saccadic blind period. This works with time displays too. Researchers created clocks that tick slower for the first second after you look at them. Participants consistently report that first second feeling longer, even though objectively, it's the same duration as subsequent seconds. Your brain is compensating for the saccadic gap by extending your perception of that first moment, creating temporal distortion to maintain the illusion of continuity. Chronostasis reveals something profound and disturbing. You don't experience reality in real time. There's a processing delay. Your brain is showing you an edited version of the past, not the actual present. The now you experience is actually about 80 to 100 milliseconds ago. Your consciousness lags behind reality. Your brain processes what happened, edits it, fills gaps, and presents a coherent narrative. But the narrative is fiction. Edited reality. Your brain is constantly making up parts of your experience to maintain the illusion that time flows smoothly. Think about what this means. Every moment you experience has been edited. Gaps filled. Motion invented. Timing adjusted. You've never actually experienced raw, unprocessed reality. Your entire life is a story your brain tells you about what happened 100 milliseconds ago. And that story is full of fabrications designed to make time feel continuous when it's actually fragmentary. Chronostasis is just the most obvious glitch in this system. The moment where the editing becomes noticeable. Where you catch your brain lying about when something happened. Chronostasis doesn't just happen with clocks. Anytime you rapidly shift attention, you might experience temporal distortion. Looking at your watch. Glancing at a timer. Checking a digital display. The first moment after your eyes land on the target feels extended because your brain is filling the saccadic gap. Some people report experiencing chronostasis in other contexts. Looking at a person and feeling like they're frozen for a moment. Looking at moving traffic and seeing it stutter. The phenomenon is the same, saccadic suppression being filled with the first post-saccade image. The most disturbing realization is that this is happening constantly. You make saccades several times per second. Every single one involves a blind period that your brain fills with fabricated experience. You're blind multiple times per second and never notice because your brain is actively deceiving you about temporal continuity. Chronostasis is what happens when the deception becomes obvious. When the filling in creates noticeable distortion. But the process is always running. Your experience of time is always being manipulated. There's no escape from this. You can't turn off saccadic suppression. You can't experience unedited reality. Your brain will always be inserting brief moments of fabricated experience to maintain temporal continuity. The best you can do is notice when it glitches. When you look at a clock and time freezes. When you catch your brain in the act of lying. And remember, if this is happening with clocks, it's happening with everything. Your entire experience of time is constructed, edited, unreliable. But chronostasis is just your brain filling tiny gaps. Our next phenomenon is far more extreme. Because under the right conditions, conditions of terror and mortal danger, your brain can make seconds feel like minutes. Reality itself seems to slow down. Let's talk about time dilation in near-death experiences. Chapter 2. Time dilation in extreme situations. Why near-death feels like it lasts forever. You're in a car accident. You see the other vehicle coming. You know you're about to crash. And in that moment, time slows down. Not metaphorically. Not poetically. Actually slows down. What objectively lasts 2 seconds feels like 20. You notice impossible details. You think complex thoughts. You experience more conscious moments in those 2 seconds than in entire hours of normal life. This is time dilation in extreme situations. And almost everyone who's experienced near-death reports the same thing. Time stretched. Reality slowed. Seconds became eternities. Your brain can alter your perception of time so dramatically that your subjective experience becomes completely divorced from objective reality. And we're only beginning to understand why. When you're in mortal danger, your brain enters a state of extreme arousal. The amygdala, your fear center, floods your system with adrenaline and cortisol. Your sympathetic nervous system activates. This is the fight or flight response. Your body preparing for survival. Heart rate spikes. Pupils dilate. Blood flow redirects to muscles. You become hyper-alert. But something else happens too. Your brain's information processing accelerates dramatically. Normally, your brain samples reality at a certain rate, taking snapshots of experience, processing them, integrating them into consciousness. This sampling creates your sense of time passing at a normal speed. But during extreme stress, your brain's sampling rate increases. Massively. You're taking more snapshots per second. Processing more information. Creating more conscious moments. And because subjective time is measured by the number of conscious moments you experience, more moments equals more time. You're experiencing time in higher resolution. Like a camera switching from 30 frames per second to 300. The objective duration is the same, but the subjective experience is vastly extended. People who've experienced near-death time dilation describe it similarly across cultures and contexts. A motorcyclist struck by a car. I saw the car coming. I had time to think about my family, about my life, about how much this was going to hurt. I noticed the color of the car, the expression on the driver's face, the way my bike was starting to tip. All of this in maybe 2 seconds of real time. But it felt like I had minutes to think. A rock climber who fell. As I was falling, time stretched. I could think clearly. I calculated how far I'd fallen, how much further I had to go, whether I'd survive. I had entire conversations with myself. And yet I was falling for maybe 3 seconds total. A soldier in combat. When the firefight started, everything slowed down. I could see bullets in flight, not actually, but my perception was so sharp it felt like I could. I made decisions that would normally require minutes of thought, but I made them in fractions of seconds. Time didn't feel real anymore. What's fascinating is that people don't just report time feeling slower. They report genuinely experiencing more. More thoughts. More sensory detail. More conscious processing. This isn't memory distortion after the fact. It's not that the memory feels long. It's that the experience itself was subjectively extended in real time. Neuroscientist David Eagleman designed experiments to test whether people actually perceive more during fear, or just remember it as lasting longer. He had participants free fall from a 150-foot tower into a net. During the fall, which took about 3 seconds, they wore a device on their wrist displaying numbers flickering too fast to normally see. The idea: if time genuinely slows during fear, they should be able to read the numbers. If it's just memory distortion, they won't. Result: they couldn't read the numbers. Their time perception didn't actually slow down in the moment. They didn't gain superhuman processing speed. But when asked to estimate how long the fall lasted, they consistently overestimated. A 3-second fall felt like 5 to 6 seconds. So time dilation is real, but it's not that reality slows. It's that memory formation accelerates. Your brain encodes more detailed memories during fear, and when you recall the experience, the density of memory makes it feel like it lasted longer. But this explanation doesn't fully capture the subjective experience. Because people report making complex decisions during extended time moments. Decisions that require conscious thought. A driver swerving to avoid a crash describes choosing between multiple collision scenarios in what felt like slow motion. Evaluating options. Making conscious choices. All in fractions of a second. If this was just memory encoding, the decisions would be unconscious. Automatic. But people report conscious deliberation during subjectively extended time. Which suggests something more complex is happening. Perhaps consciousness itself accelerates during extreme stress. Perhaps the brain's processing speed genuinely increases, allowing more thoughts per objective second. Or perhaps consciousness is normally running at high speed, but we're only aware of a fraction of it. And during stress, we become aware of more of our own processing, pulling back the curtain on normally unconscious thought. From an evolutionary perspective, time dilation makes sense. When you're in mortal danger, you need to process information quickly. Make survival decisions in fractions of seconds. Accelerating information processing gives you an advantage. You can evaluate more options. Notice more details. React more effectively. The subjective experience of time slowing is a side effect of this acceleration. Your brain isn't trying to make time feel slow, it's trying to process information fast. The temporal distortion is just how that feels from the inside. But this raises disturbing questions about the nature of time and consciousness. If your subjective experience of time can vary so dramatically while objective time remains constant, then what is real time? Is there even such a thing as objective temporal experience? Maybe time is always subjective, always constructed by your brain. And extreme stress just makes the construction obvious by stretching it beyond normal parameters. There's a dark side to time dilation. People who experience it during trauma often develop PTSD. And part of PTSD involves temporal distortion in memory. Traumatic memories don't feel like they happened in the past. They feel present. Immediate. Because they were encoded during time dilation, they carry that extended temporal quality. When someone with PTSD has a flashback, they're not just remembering trauma. They're re-experiencing time dilation. The memory feels like it's happening now and lasting forever because that's how it felt during the original experience. Time dilation in trauma becomes a curse. The worst moments of your life are preserved in extended time. A 10-second assault feels like it lasted 5 minutes in memory. And every time you recall it, you relive those subjectively extended minutes. Your brain's survival mechanism, accelerating processing during danger, becomes a source of ongoing suffering. The very thing that might have helped you survive now traps you in elongated traumatic memory. Time dilation proves that your experience of duration is not fixed. Under stress, second stretch. Your consciousness experiences more in less objective time. Which means the temporal structure of your life, how long things feel like they last, is malleable. Constructed. Your brain decides how much time you experience, independent of how much time actually passes. And that construction can be manipulated. By fear. By stress. By brain chemistry. Your sense of time is not a faithful representation of reality. It's an interpretation. And interpretations can be wrong. But time dilation isn't just random. With training and specific circumstances, some people can deliberately enter states where time perception changes. Where reality seems to slow down on command. Let's talk about tachypsychia, the bullet time effect. Chapter 3. Bullet time. When reality moves in slow motion, a boxer sees a punch coming. To an observer, it's fast, a blur of motion lasting a fraction of a second. But to the boxer, it's slow. He can see the trajectory, the rotation of the shoulder, the shift in weight. He has time to decide how to respond. Slip left. Block. Counter. The punch hasn't actually slowed down. But his perception has accelerated. Reality appears to move in slow motion. This is tachypsychia. From Greek, tachy meaning speed and psyche meaning mind. Speed of mind. The bullet time effect. And it's not just perception. During tachypsychia, motor control accelerates too. You can act faster because you're processing faster. Reality slows because you've sped up. Tachypsychia is most commonly reported by people in high-speed, high-stake situations. Combat athletes, soldiers in firefights, race car drivers, extreme sports athletes, law enforcement in shootouts, anyone experiencing intense, practiced, life-or-death situations. The common factor. Extreme stress combined with extensive training. Your brain knows what to do. It's done it thousands of times. And now it's operating at maximum capacity. A professional boxer describes it. When I'm in the zone, I can see everything. Punches that would normally be too fast to react to look slow. I have time to think. To adjust. To counter. It's like I'm playing the game at half speed while everyone else is at full speed. A race car driver. At 200 miles per hour, everything should be a blur. But in those critical moments, when I'm making a pass, when I'm avoiding a crash, time stretches. I can see gaps in traffic that are only there for a fraction of a second. And I can thread through them because to me, they're open for much longer. A soldier, in combat, when you're trained and you've been in enough firefights, things slow down. You're still moving fast, faster than you thought possible, but your perception is slowed. You can track multiple threats. Make decisions that should take seconds in milliseconds. It's like everyone else is underwater and you're not. Tachypsychia is closely related to what psychologists call flow state, that optimal performance zone where you're completely absorbed in an activity and performing at your peak. But tachypsychia adds a temporal component. Not just peak performance, but altered time perception during that performance. Neuroscientifically, several things are happening. 1. Dopamine and norepinephrine flood your system. These neurochemicals enhance focus, sharpen perception, and accelerate processing. You're chemically primed for peak performance. 2. Your prefrontal cortex, responsible for self-reflection and worry, quiets down. Without that internal chatter, your brain can devote more resources to sensory processing and motor control. 3. Your brain's predictive processing accelerates. Because you're highly trained, your brain has models of what should happen next. It can predict outcomes milliseconds before they occur, giving you a head start on reactions. 4. Attention narrows. You're not distracted by irrelevant stimuli. 100% of your processing power goes to the task. This creates a sense of time slowing because you're extracting maximum information from each moment. Importantly, tachypsychia seems to require expertise. Novices don't experience it. It emerges after thousands of hours of practice. A beginner boxer getting punched doesn't experience slow motion. They experience confusion and pain. Everything happens too fast. They can't process it. But an expert has internalized the patterns. Their brain has built prediction models. When a punch comes, they don't have to consciously analyze it. Their brain automatically predicts trajectory, timing, impact point. This prediction creates the sensation of seeing it slowly. It's like watching a movie you've seen 100 times. You know what's coming next. You can see future frames before they appear because your brain fills them in from memory. Experts in high-speed environments do the same thing in real time. Their brains predict what's about to happen based on pattern recognition, creating the subjective experience of seeing it in slow motion. Can you learn to induce tachypsychia? To some degree, yes. Through extensive deliberate practice in high-speed environments, you can train your brain to process faster and enter flow states more reliably. Combat athletes describe specific training techniques: visualization of slowed-down movements, meditation to quiet mental chatter, exposure, progressively faster stimuli, pattern recognition drills, high-stress simulation training. The more you train in high-speed environments, the more your brain adapts. Neural pathways strengthen. Pattern recognition improves. Processing speed increases. Eventually, under pressure, your brain automatically shifts into the accelerated state. Reality appears to slow down because you've sped up. But it's not guaranteed. Even experts don't experience tachypsychia every time. It requires the right combination of stress, preparation, and mental state. Tachypsychia has a dark side. While it can enhance performance in the moment, it can create psychological issues afterward. Soldiers who experience tachypsychia in combat sometimes develop dissociative symptoms. The experience of time slowing dramatically feels unreal, like a dream or simulation. This can contribute to depersonalization and PTSD. It didn't feel like it was happening to me, one veteran describes. I was watching someone else fight. Someone who looked like me, in my body, but I was just observing. Time was slow and nothing felt real. This dissociation, while potentially protective in the moment, can become a lasting problem. When time perception distorts so dramatically, it can break your sense of being grounded in reality. Some people who regularly experience tachypsychia report that normal life feels frustratingly slow afterward. When you're used to operating at peak processing speed, ordinary consciousness feels sluggish, boring. This can create a dangerous feedback loop where people seek out high-stress situations just to feel that temporal acceleration again. Adrenaline junkies chasing the bullet time experience. Tachypsychia reveals that your normal experience of time is just one setting. Your brain can adjust the speed. Under the right conditions, stress, training, neurochemical state, you can perceive reality at different temporal resolutions. Which raises the question, what is the real speed of time? If your perception can vary this much, is there even such a thing as objective temporal flow? Maybe time is always relative to the observer's processing speed. Maybe there is no absolute rate at which reality unfolds. Only different subjective experiences of duration. You live your entire life at a certain temporal resolution. But that's just your brain's default setting. Not objective reality. Just one possible way to experience time. Tachypsychia is what happens when you glimpse other settings. When reality slows because you sped up. When you discover that time perception is a dial your brain can turn. But all of these phenomena, chronostasis, time dilation, tachypsychia, occur in the moment. Our final phenomenon is different. It's about how memory distorts duration. How experiences that were objectively brief feel long in retrospect. Let's talk about the oddball effect. Chapter 4. The oddball effect: why novel experiences feel longer than they were. Think back to your first week at a new job. Or your first week in a new city. Or your first week of college. How long did that week feel? Not in the moment, in retrospect. When you remember it now, it probably feels like it lasted much longer than a week. Maybe it feels like it lasted a month. Because so much happened. So much was new. You formed so many memories. This is the oddball effect. Novel, unusual experiences feel longer in memory than familiar, routine ones, even when they were objectively the same duration. And it explains why childhood felt like it lasted forever, while last year disappeared in a blink. Do you remember being a child? How summer vacation felt endless. How the school year stretched on forever. How waiting for Christmas or your birthday felt like waiting for eternity. But now, as an adult, years disappear. Months blur together. Summer comes and goes in what feels like weeks. Christmas arrives again and you think, didn't we just do this? This isn't just nostalgia. This is real temporal distortion caused by how your brain encodes and retrieves memories. The oddball effect works like this. Your brain doesn't encode every moment equally. Familiar, routine experiences get compressed. Novel experiences get detailed encoding. When you do something for the 100th time, your commute, your morning routine, a typical workday, your brain essentially says, I know this already, and creates a minimal memory trace. Just enough to prove it happened, not enough to remember details. But when you do something new, visit a new place, meet new people, try a new activity, your brain creates rich, detailed memories. More neural resources devoted to encoding. More details preserved. Later, when you remember these experiences, your brain uses memory density as a proxy for duration. More memories equals more time must have passed. A week full of novel experiences creates more memories than a month of routine. So in retrospect, that novel week feels longer than the routine month. This is why childhood felt long. Everything was novel. Every day brought new experiences. Your brain was constantly encoding rich memories. So childhood, in retrospect, feels like it lasted forever. But adulthood, with its routines and repetition, creates fewer distinctive memories. Days blur together. Years compress. Time seems to accelerate because you're encoding less. Researchers have demonstrated this experimentally. In one study, participants watched sequences of images, mostly identical, with occasional oddball images that were different. When asked to estimate how long each image appeared on screen, participants consistently judged oddball images as appearing longer than identical images, even though all images appeared for exactly the same duration. The novel image created more neural activity, more encoding, and that density of encoding created the subjective impression of longer duration. In another study, people were shown rapidly presented stimuli, letters, numbers, images, in sequence. Most were predictable, but occasionally an unexpected stimulus appeared. Participants reported that unexpected stimuli appeared to last longer than expected ones. Not just in memory, but in the moment. The oddball seemed to slow down time subjectively, but objective measurements showed all stimuli appeared for identical durations. The time distortion was purely perceptual, created by the brain's surprise response to novelty. The oddball effect has profound implications for how you experience your life. If you want time to feel like it's passing slowly, if you want your life to feel long and rich, you need novelty. New experiences. Varied activities. Breaks from routine. But if you fall into repetitive patterns, same job, same routine, same activities year after year, time will compress. Years will vanish. You'll reach old age wondering where your life went. This isn't about actually slowing time. You can't change objective duration. But you can change subjective duration. How long your life feels when you look back on it. And subjective duration might be what actually matters. Because you don't experience objective time, you only experience subjective time. A life that objectively lasts 80 years but feels like 40 because of routine is experientially shorter than a life that lasts 60 years but feels like 100 because of constant novelty. This explains why time seems to accelerate as you get older. It's not that objective time speeds up. It's that you create fewer new memories. As a child, everything is new. Every day is full of first experiences. Your brain is encoding constantly, building rich memory palaces. So childhood, in retrospect, feels long. As an adult, you fall into routines. Most days are similar. Most experiences are repeated. Your brain compresses these into minimal memory traces. So adulthood, in retrospect, feels short.